Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So we are going to make a cookie tray today in the spirit of all things Christmas. We got about a week or so left of the Christmas videos, and I've got a new technique. I think I've never seen it before on how to transfer pictures, stencils, whatever onto your resin pieces. So let's get on with it. All right, so the first thing I'm gonna do is I want to do just a thin layer of resin. I'm gonna do 3 different shades of blue, dark, medium, and light, and I kind of want them to blend together to get that kind of snowy, wintry looking background that just seems like it should be in any kind of a winter scene. So I apologize for the long video on this. I tried to cut it down as much as possible without kind of getting into the content of it. But, I had probably like, oh God, it was like 50 clips I had to cut down and speed up and all that good stuff to make it as short as it is, if you can believe that this is short. So I do apologize for it, but I really hope that you enjoy it. I mean, it kind of, because it's a 3-tier tray, it's kind of like 3 videos in one if you look at it that way. Anyway, on to this. Now we're going to pour it. So I'm going to do it differently for each one. And I'm right now just getting a little bit of dust and whatnot out of the molds. And anyway, so I'm going to do it differently in each one. I want the darker ring around the outside edge of the smaller one. And then I'm just going to go with the next shade of blue down, and then finish it up with a dark ring in the middle. I don't know why I chose what I chose, but I did. And then I kind of started thinking about it, and I was like, well, maybe I should have made the darker ring on the inside. So I'm going to do it opposite for this tray. And then, since it's in the middle, and then for the other one, I'm going to go back to the way I did it the first time and start with the dark on the outside. No real, I mean, I want to say there's no rhyme or reason to it. There kind of was, but not. Like, I was trying to think how it would like look in a scenery type thing with the shades of blue. But honestly, in the end, it didn't really matter because, like I said, I blended them all together and they, not like they stayed any particular way anyway. So, it probably didn't matter how I poured them in. So I went around the edges with my dotting tool, and now I'm just going to, just to make sure that the resin is touching all of the sides, all those corners, make sure there's no bubbles in there at all. And then I'm just going to take that same tool, and after I spread out this resin, I'm gonna kind of mix them together-ish. I don't want any hard lines. That's what I don't want. So I want it where I wanted to see the different, like the actual differences in the blue. I don't want it any certain hard lines. Like, I don't want to be like, okay, well, there's the dark ring, there's the medium ring, there's the light ring of color. I want them to kind of blend, but I did want some kind of distinction in there. But again, like I said, resin does what resin wants to do, and it's not like it really mattered what I wanted in the end anyway. It did what it wanted to. Now I'm just hitting it with my heat gun just to make sure I pop any bubbles that are on there. And that's it for these two. I'm going to move them out the way, and then we're going to finish pouring in this biggest one. Again, hitting it with the dark blue around the edges and in the center, and then going in with the 2 lighter shades coming out of the ring and just scraping all of that resin into there so I don't have any waste. Now, on a side note, I don't know. I had to move those other 2 molds because I didn't have enough space on this worktop to have all 3 of them. And I moved them off into my drying center. Now, I don't know if when I set the smallest one down, if I didn't set it down straight, or I don't know. But when I go to look at it the next day, that middle part where the hole is for the piece, like the hardware of the tray, is all kinds of wonky. It is angled. There's a huge, like, it's not a bubble, like, as in, like, an air bubble, but it's a huge, like, divot in there where the mold either popped up or it's damaged. Like, it didn't look damaged when I pulled it out and was looking at it. Now, one side was kind of up and weird looking, and I did put something down on it to kind of push that one corner down, and I don't know if maybe that did it or if it was just the moving, because they are very thin, flimsy molds. So if you go to use a mold like this and have to move it for some reason, absolutely make sure that it is 100% flat, because this piece is now, well, it's unusable until I fix it, which you'll see in the end results. Okay, so here we are 24 hours later, and here's my new way of how to transfer stuff on. So I started thinking the carbon paper idea that I had with the stencils didn't necessarily work the way that I wanted it to in the mold. Now, I could have very easily traced this on to this piece because it's big enough that the entire stencil will fit on here, and I wouldn't have had a problem. But I had an idea, and I thought, I've got some self-laminating paper. I wonder if I can draw a picture on it, or, in this case, a stencil, but you could probably even get, like, the carbon paper if you wanted to, and do the same thing. Like, if you had a picture to trace onto it instead, trace it onto the laminating paper. And then what I can do is, after I've traced it on, I can cut it out to the size that I need. So all these little pieces right here, I can actually split apart. See, because they don't necessarily fit, but I can move them apart now, and I can put it on, and it's no different than applying a sticker. And then I can paint or use the Duraclear or whatever I want to do on top of this. But I can move these pieces around and not have to worry about, you know, that little piece in the middle. However, the one thing I will tell you is, just like you would with a sticker or vinyl or anything else, be careful on how you apply it because of air bubbles. I did get a couple that I guess I thought I had out, or I didn't think it would make a difference. It does make a difference in the finished piece, but you can't really see those lines, like those sticker lines. And if you want to, you can paint over them. And then, because it's a stencil, and you know how they have like the cutouts and whatever, I can fill in those parts to make it not look like a stencil. So it opens the door and the possibilities on being able to do even more stuff than before. So if I use the carbon sheet on this, and I put if I had a picture and I used a carbon sheet on it, I would have issues around that middle piece where the little nubby thing for the hole in the center is. And if I had, especially if the piece, like whatever I'm painting or whatever, went into it, I would probably rip it and it would probably put a hole through it. But this way I can draw it on, and then I can just paint over it, and I can put it however I need to. I can cut holes into it. I can cut it apart to move it around and make it bigger or smaller as I choose, and it's not going to matter, which I thought was super cool. The only thing that I don't want to say I had a problem with, but you may want to consider is, okay, I used a Sharpie marker for this, and painting over it is very similar to painting on resin, to where, you have to do a couple of coats to get it to cover up the right way. But those black lines kept wanting to kind of pop through. Now, in the end, on what I ended up doing anyway, was because of the type of picture that this is, and it's more, not necessarily cartoony, but It's not realistic either. I ended up putting the outline on these pieces, which is fine for this particular piece, but maybe you don't necessarily want a hard black outline. You would either have to cover it with way, way more paint or find a different like markered style, whatever to use. And this is where maybe again with a stencil, I don't know how well that would work with the carbon paper because I had an issue with it before. But it might be okay since it's on a flat surface and you don't have to worry about the edges of the mold or whatever hurting it. You might be able to do it like that and it might be all right to where you can kind of wipe off those carbon lines fairly easily, unlike this Sharpie marker that it's not going anywhere. So you may have to play around with that and what you use a little bit. Now for this particular one, because I didn't want to cut the tree in half, all I did was I cut a hole right in the middle. Of course, it's where that bulb was. And see, I'm pointing out this is where my problem is going to lie. Um, but anyway, I pointed out where the bulb was. I went ahead and just cut that out around there, and then I could stick that right through the middle and have no problems with it at all. Okay, so now I'm going to the painting portion of this, and I've sped it up for you like a bunch. I'm just going to have some music playing. I don't need to talk through this. You can clearly see what I'm doing, and I will be back when we come to the next part. I will catch you guys on the flip side. Guys, I'm back. I hope you enjoyed that. Sorry for the footage that I lost on that tree. I don't know what happened to it. Like I said, I had like 50 something clips that I had, and I must have accidentally deleted it or something. I don't know. I don't know. It's a lot of clips to go through. So all I'm doing now is I'm just taking my Nic Pro resin and pouring it over the top just to fill the mold up the rest of the way, get everything covered. I did let this set. I let it set about 48 hours, honestly, because I applied that paint so thick on the bottom where the snow is that I wanted to make sure that it was completely dry before I added the resin on top. I don't want any moisture in there to ruin it at all. And I mean, where yes, acrylic paint does dry fairly quickly, I put a lot of paint down there, like a lot. And you can see when I show you the pieces up close, you can kind of see how that outline, not what I did with the Sharpie at the end, but the outline that's underneath the paint kind of pops through where the issue may lie if that's something that you don't necessarily want. And I wish I would have thought about it beforehand, because there, that outline for that tree on the very bottom where the base of the tree is, I should have done a better job covering that up. But you know, we all screw up and make mistakes and don't necessarily pay 100% attention, especially when you've got like 100 million things going on at one time. I am super worried about this piece at this point, pouring the resin on, because I don't know how it's going to turn out. I don't know if it's going to be usable, savable at all at this point, and the tree one. And I'm like really worried about it. Like all of that work could be for naught. But we'll find out. So that's all I did here. I'm pouring it in. I'm going over, making sure there's no air bubbles, all that good stuff, just like I do all the time, hitting it with a heat gun. And then we're going to set it off to dry and see how this turns out. Do the same thing for the other one. However, it is a day later that I get to do it. And I had a little bit of resin, you can see it poured, that I just poured on there that I had left over from the day before. I didn't really have a good flat surface for this to lay. And I thought, instead of wasting that little bit that I had left, and I didn't want to overfill my other molds and have a big mess on my hands, I just kind of poured it in there, and you can't tell. So this is the last piece, covering it up. I'm pretty stoked on how it looks. I mean, the reindeer are a little derpy, the squirrels are a little derpy, but all in all, I think it turns out really cute. I'm happy with it for the most part. I mean, there's definitely room for improvement. And, you know, I never claimed to be the best painter in the world, because that I am definitely not. I did add glitter to the white paint just to kind of sparkle that up. And then some of the dots, as you've seen before, when I was doing the last little bit, when I was adding that snow, I used the gloss varnish glitter mixture and kind of put some little snowflake dots up at the top along with the white dots that I put up there. And you know, that's it. Fingers crossed that this turns out good and I don't have any more issues from this point forward. And 24 hours later, here we are. Now it's time to assess the damage and if this piece is going to be savable or not. Ugh. So it comes out beautifully on the top. That back though, I mean, that's a hell of a divot, and the hole is crooked. Now, I don't know if I don't know. I think what's going to have to be done, and it's not going to be done in time for this video to go out, so I'll have to do a short on it or put some pictures up in the community tab at a later date. I'm going to have to cover the back, probably just do it with some clear resin, I'm thinking, just in case it goes over anywhere. And then I'm going to have to re-drill another hole in there, and it's going to have to be straight. So I'm still not sure how it's going to work, but I'll fiddle with it when I have a little bit extra time. Okay, time to unmold this big guy. Turns out great. Now it's time to assemble this thing. In a minute. I forgot I decided that I was gonna go over it with silver. So I typically don't necessarily care for edging my pieces out, which I know you guys are probably laughing at me and you're like, well, your last two videos now you have done that. But typically I don't. I don't always care for it. I mean, in some stuff it looks good, but there's other things that I think sometimes it's just too much. The reason I chose to do it on this is because the acrylic paint that I put down for the snow at the bottom touched the mold, and so it's on like the bottom of the piece, and it's more of I did it to kind of disguise that so you don't see it. And also there's like parts on there where you can still see the blue, because I was trying not to hit the bottom, but at the same time, like, you want to hit the bottom because you don't want the blue showing. It's supposed to be snow. So it's like a whole conundrum, right? So this will kind of help disguise that you won't be able to see the ugly edges where the acrylic did hit the mold, and you can see it on the clear and it's just not that great looking. And then also when I put the very, very thin line of edging around the top of it, it makes it less noticeable where the blue is. So it works on that note. And the silver, I mean, it does kind of go with it, and especially since the hardware is silver as well. So that's just what I'm going to do, and I'm making sure that like when I'm putting the edging around there, I'm only using like the very tip of the chiseled paint pen. I don't want a thick line. Like, I want it to be a slight accent. I don't want it to overtake it and be like the focus of it. So I am just finishing it off with just a very, very thin line, just the tip of that chiseled point on the edge of this, just to give it that little bit. And it does kind of finish this piece off fairly nicely. It ties up all of those kind of, you know, not scruffy edges, but especially down at the bottom where the paint's just yeah. So it adds to it in this instance, I think. And I do like it a lot. I really truly do. I think it turns out really, really, really pretty. I just hope I can get that very top piece fixed. Okay, so here's here's the fun part. And I was gonna cut a lot of this out because honestly, this whole part right here makes me look like I'm really, really stupid. I've never put together this. This is the first time that I have ever used a tray mold like this, so I've never done the hardware, and I wasn't sure how to do it. And I'm sure they sent me directions. There was some kind of pamphlet in there when I got these molds, but did I read it? Absolutely not. Did I even look at it? Absolutely not. Did I throw it away? Absolutely. So, I don't know how to put this thing together. So I did fiddle with it for a while to try and figure it out. I ended up looking online to see how to put it together, and I was in a time crunch, so I couldn't spend a whole lot of time doing that. And then finally I figured out that there were two different size screws for the bottom. I was able to get that figured out, and then eventually it all came. But anyway, I just wanted to leave this in here. I mean, my video is already long anyway, just to show you guys that the struggle is real sometimes, and we all do dumb stuff and don't read directions like we should. Here's the part where I didn't realize before this that there's two different size screws, and it's all kinds of wobbly, and I'm like, this cannot be right. Like, there is no way. Every tray that I've ever seen made, nobody has a wobbling issue like this where it's up on the screw, and I couldn't figure out what was going on, what I was doing wrong. And I wasn't screwing it in super, super tight because now I did just unmold these pieces, so I need to take this apart afterwards to let it lay flat for a couple of weeks so that I don't have any issues with warping and whatnot. But I did want to put it together so you guys can see after I realized that the first part, it's just unusable right now. Like, I couldn't even show it to you guys on there because of how crooked it is. Yeah, I'm really hoping I can fix this. Anyway, so I just did the top two. Like I said, when I fix it, I'll do the third one with all of them on there and show you how it's done and what it looks like completely put together. I think it's super cute. I can't wait to use it this year for Christmas when I have dinner at my house with all my kids and grandkids and all that good stuff. Anyway, I know it was a long one, guys. If you're still here, thank you so much, and I appreciate you. Like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. I will catch you on Thursday. Love ya. Bye.